start with the president here.
Before I took office, there were a lot of folks out there making some pretty bold predictions about how things would turn out. You might remember some of the predictions.
They're coming for your guns, they're coming for your jobs, and they're coming for your freedom. They hate American energy, and Joe Biden will shut it all down. He's going to.
That if I became president...
Biden's elected, he will wipe out your energy industry.
Another prediction that is my favorite one, I must add, is that if I got elected...
Gas prices going $5, $6, $7 for a gallon.
Anyway, welcome to the Great American Mail podcast for June 22nd, 2022. That is obviously President Biden. That's a montage that somebody put together about a week ago about all the different predictions that Biden made if he were to become president of the United States. As we all know, there are problems out there with the gas price, and the president he's on top of it, and he's out there. He's proposing that we have a gas tax suspension for 3 months. Now, we've talked about this before in the context of states doing it. Now the federal government is getting involved in it. As you know, I've told you before, I'm against it for really two big reasons. First and foremost, folks, it's just a gimmick. As soon as they suspend it, he'll start bragging about how he lowered gas prices, which is not the way this works, right? The other main reason I'm against it is they're gonna tax you in some other way, so they'll just get the money there. And then I really should add a third here, I guess. And the other thing is, look, we have this here to build roads and bridges. That's why you pay the tax. So the idea that we should just suspend it, I mean, what are we going to do? Not build bridges? We're not going to build roads? I mean, this makes no sense at all. That's like saying I'm going to save money by stopping eating. I mean, it's just a gimmick, and I don't. The federal government shouldn't be involved in gimmicks, but as you're going to see from today, they're going to be talking about a lot of gimmicks. So anyway, we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to bring you up to speed on where the Senate is on gun control. We're going to talk about the upcoming Supreme Court decisions, a prediction by Ted Cruz on that. We're going to talk about some transgender athlete stuff and a bunch of other things we can get to. So even CNN is not taking seriously what Biden is saying, and it looks like we're seeing a slight shift over there at CNN. Take a look to what they had to say about Biden's supposed pause on the gas tax.
Struggling to get gas prices down, and now President Biden is considering a federal gas tax holiday. So joining us now to talk about this is CNN chief business correspondent Christine Romans. Christine, tell us what this would look like and how it would feel for us.
Well, let's unpack this. First of all, this is the urgency behind the White House here. When you look at numbers like this, $4.97, holding steady here below $5 a gallon. But just look, a year ago, it was $3.07 for a gallon of regular. So this is something that is hurting American families every single day, and it shows in the distress in so many of these public opinion polls. So what is the White House considering? A gas tax holiday that would suspend the federal tax of 18.4 cents a gallon if the White House decides to go this way. This is used to fund the federal highway system and infrastructure projects, and there are state taxes on top of that as well. So this is one of the reasons why you see gas prices so different all across the country.
You know, it's amazing. CNN, again, they seem to be shifting a little bit and giving us a little bit more news, but I'm pausing at this because, you know, folks, they talk to us like we're children. I mean, like the average American doesn't understand that there's a state tax and a gas tax, a state and federal gas tax, and it's basically used for infrastructure. I mean, you know, and that's why it's different by state, because can you believe it or not, different states charge different amounts. I mean, it's just hilarious. Anyway, it continues.
Depends on what your state is taxing. California, for example, has 58 cents. Alaska is the lowest at just 8 cents. So that's why you see such big differentiation in gas prices. So that 18.4 cents a gallon, a holiday would give drivers a little bit of a break. Here's what Greg Valliere, someone who advises Wall Street on what's happening in Washington, here's what he says about it. He says, most experts consider this a gimmick, gas tax holiday, but Democrats would gladly accept an end of the 18 cents per gallon gasoline tax, which would win strong public support. Indeed, the public is supportive of this. And he says the chances are probably about 60 cents or 60%. So why is it a gimmick? Brianna,
before she explains why it's a gimmick, I mean, for the reason I just told you a moment ago is basically the answer to that. But, you know, again, folks, this is another problem with our government. I mean, our government does all these little tricks and gimmicks to try and satisfy us. I mean, if you're satisfied by the government giving you 18 cents a gallon for 3 months, if that makes you feel better, then you don't understand how government should work. I'm not for that. I mean, I don't care how much money you give me. I don't want you to gut what the government is supposed to be doing when times get bad. I want you to go out there and figure out policies to get the gas price down back to where it was. I mean, when Biden took office, I'll never forget, because I remember I went and got gas that day, January 20th of 2021. It was $1.99. It's now over $5 in some places here. So, I mean, that is not the gas tax causing that. But anyway, let her go ahead and tell us why it's a gimmick, and we'll move on to some other stuff.
Interesting. This is a tax that hasn't really risen since the 1990s, right? 18.4 cents for fixing highways, roads, and bridges, paying for mass transit, funding other state projects and agencies. It hasn't kept up with inflation or the demand. And quite frankly, our cars are so much more fuel efficient right now that your gas taxes aren't going as far as they used to be. So this would be robbing Peter to pay Paul. Now, keep in mind, Paul's about ready to go in and vote in a midterm election. So that might be.
Seeing it. By the way, what's going to happen when we switch, as we do more and more, over to the electric-powered vehicles? How are we going to get that gas tax then? But anyway, I'm sure they'll figure something out.
Cynical reasons that we're talking about this here. And again, I will just close for you, Brianna, exactly what the urgency is here. To fill up a tank of gas, 15 gallons, $75 today, compared with 46 last year. And one other point you got to understand is that you have to go back another 6 months or so before you get to when Biden started. So when he started the assault on energy, that's when all this started to happen. So the Supreme Court were waiting for a couple of decisions from the Supreme Court. Two big ones were waiting to hear: the Roe decision and the gun control Second Amendment decision. Are both big decisions. Both are going to get a lot of press. Nothing will get press like the Roe decision is going to get. But the Second Amendment one will come in close if they come out the way we think they are. So we think the Supreme Court is going to say there's no federal right to an abortion, so it's going to be a state-by-state issue. And we expect the Supreme Court to declare that a gun law in New York, I believe, that says that you must provide good cause for needing a carry permit, I think they're going to strike that down too. So they're going to expand Second Amendment rights. But Ted Cruz went out there to explain what he thinks is going to happen. And I thought it was interesting. I don't disagree with Ted Cruz. I very rarely disagree with Ted Cruz. But this is what Ted Cruz thinks is coming if and when the decision. And, folks, this thing could drop any minute. Word is it will absolutely drop before the end of the month. Word is it will probably drop before the end of this week, which means the 24th, because the Supreme Court goes on recess. I mean, they'll still be around for writs and injunctions and things of that nature, but they will essentially be done by the end of this month, and they think that they'll try to get all the opinions out this week. So it could drop any minute, maybe dropping right now, and I don't even know about it. But anyway, here's what Ted Cruz has to say.
Now, when that decision comes down, we're going to see the left lose their mind. We're going to see, sadly, organized riots. I fear we're going to see organized violence. I think we're going to see something very similar to what we saw in 2020 with the Antifa and Black Lives riots across the country. We're already seeing Democratic politicians directing violent rioters to go to the justices' homes, to threaten the justices' homes. We saw someone arrested for attempted murder of Justice Kavanaugh, and I think we're deliberately going to see violence used as a tool of political terrorism by the left. Now, when that decision comes down...
So we'll see if Ted Cruz is right about this. But I tell you, I think he's got a point. And it wouldn't shock me if we see the same type of violence we saw in 2020 with Antifa and BLM. I mean, it just goes to show you that this stuff is staged and they have people ready to go. And one of the things that when I heard Ted Cruz talk about this was it's interesting that Obama used to brag about his ground game. And, he was a community organizer, so he knew a little bit about ground game and things of that nature. And one of the things that concerns me is these people, because they've been getting away with this for so long. I mean, when they first started to do it and put these things out there, these false flags, right, which nobody does any work anymore to check and see if they're legit or not, you could easily have people ready to stage demonstrations and just have a summer of terror about these protests. And believe me, there will be protests in all likelihood about the Roe decision, and there'll be protests almost as badly about the Second Amendment decision. So one of the things we heard in that montage from the president was that they're going to come for your rights. And he mentions the Second Amendment there. I don't know if I played it today or not. But one of the interesting things about that is that last night, it turns out 14 Republicans agreed to start debate on gun legislation. Now, this is why this is important, because a lot of the things they're talking about are common sense gun control items that really aren't going to do really much of anything. But I want to explain to you how they, in all likelihood, will hurt your rights, okay? So first and foremost, I want you to understand how this works logistically with the Senate. So this was not a vote to invoke cloture. When you invoke cloture, you're saying, I want to end debate and I want to take this bill to the floor for a vote. And then at that point, it's majority rule. In the Senate, to end debate, or so-called end cloture, you have to be able to overcome a filibuster. A filibuster is somebody says, no, I think we need more debate. And the idea is we're just going to debate it until our term ends, and then it goes away and has to be reproposed. So you need 60. Now, the 14 Republicans that joined with the 50 Democrats to say, yes, I'm ready to start debate, they are not saying that they would end debate. Now, presumably, a lot of them will, but the Democrats are going to need to get, they're going to need to get 10 of them, 10 of the 14. Or look at it another way, you're going to need 5 Republicans to say, hey, I thought we would start debate and look at the issue. I didn't think we were going to end debate and vote on it. So we'll see where it goes, but it doesn't look good at this point. Now, one important thing to know to watch for, it's the 22nd. They go on recess for the July 4th holiday, I believe on the 2nd. So they've got about 10 days in which to get this debated, and then if there's going to be a filibuster, have a filibuster fight. So look for this to happen pretty quickly. And some of the things that are in there are troubling. We haven't seen the bill, and there's stories out there that even the senators, and this is, again, part of the hoax and part of the false flags the way in which we're governing out there now, and it's really problematic, that apparently the senators did not get the bill until an hour before they were supposed to vote for the bill. Now, folks, if you think this is the way government ought to happen, then, God bless you, but this is the kind of nutty stuff that we're doing. So we don't normally get into this culture war stuff, but this one caught my eye because this is what we do. And we're about to play something. Apparently the rugby league out there basically has declared that transgender athletes are not going to be permitted to play in the leagues with the women. That follows up from another group out there, I can't recall who it was, but also said they're not going to let transgender athletes participate. And if you're following us and you're watching this on YouTube, you will be able to see this person. But if you're listening on the podcast, you won't be able to see him, but I think you'll be able to hear from the tone and the tenor here what's going on. So let's just dive into this. This is I'm really not putting on airs, folks, are trying to joke about this, folks. I really don't understand this stuff. My brain just won't compute this. But this looks to be a man who, I can't tell if he's grown his hair long or he's wearing a wig, but he's wearing female clothing. I'm about 6 foot 225. He looks like he's about 6'2", 250 at least. He is a big guy. Anyway, let's go listen to the interview.
Do you accept the AFL's argument that you do have a size advantage over some of your opponents?
I think the biggest issue is not necessarily that I'm too big or too strong now. It's more, okay, you're already big, you're already strong, whatever, but what if you were to get into that elite training environment and they were to build you up, put on an extra 15 kilos and you just push everyone aside? But physiologically, that's just not going to happen.
The people who seem...
Okay, now this is going to shift to a doctor who is also transgender, not quite as big, but older, but very tall person. We'll get to her in a moment. But I want you, so listen to this. So what the problem is not now, I mean, I'm looking at this person. This person is huge. Now, I'm not saying there aren't women out there that can, I don't think I'm going to be quite as big as him, but, could maybe give him a run for his money here and there. But it's going to be far and few between, folks. And what he said there was, well, what they're concerned is I stopped with the depressing my testosterone and I get back in the gym and put on a bunch of weight later. No, pal. They're talking about you have an advantage now. We understand how it works. I mean, this isn't an American. And normally we don't do the non-American stuff, but I want you to understand because it's there and it's coming here. I'm glad that they didn't agree to it, but anyway, they're sort of challenging the notion that men have an advantage, and this is the same thing that Leah Thomas did. I didn't get into that when they were doing that here. I had it in the can a couple times, just never got around to it. But this sort of attack on reality. So let's take a listen from this other person who's supporting this athlete.
The biggest problem with this is male administrators, but the female competitors haven't raised their voices at all.
Lisa Watson knows.
So there you go. We have a doctor, and she's saying, hey, well, the biggest problem is the male administrators. The women athletes haven't said anything. But see, again, we know the reason they haven't said anything is because they know what will happen to them if they do.
Better than most what Hannah's going through. She's a doctor who specialises in transgender health issues and is also a transgender athlete. After 2 years of hormone replacement therapy, she says Hannah's body has no residual benefits from her time as a male.
Prior to her transition...
Now, folks, this was on 60 Minutes, okay, which is an American show, obviously. So, folks, that statement is absurd, that after going through this, she has no residual benefit from being a man. Based on, and again, if you're watching it on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, these are not just two men. These are two very muscular men. Even after all this, this hormone therapy, they're still pretty big, pretty buff guys. It's just fascinating that they're looking in the camera and saying this. But anyway, let's let the doctor try to explain it, and it's easily debunkable even after she tries to explain it.
She had a V8 motor powering this big muscle frame. Now she's transitioned and her testosterone level has dropped and her muscle mass has decreased and her strength and stamina has decreased. She's now got a little 4-cylinder engine, so she's actually at a physical disadvantage.
And there you have it. I wanted to get to that point. So she had a V8. All right, she had a V8. Now she's got a V4, right? All right, little small 4-cylinder engine. Okay, the women have 1-cylinder engines or 2-cylinder engines, you know. But now you're going to try to make me think you're at a disadvantage. And again, I've told you this trick time and time again. The left do this. And the reason they do this is the American system or the Western system is designed to seek compromise, right? So if you compromise with somebody who's coming in and taking a reasonable position, you take a reasonable position, you end up with a reasonable position. But if somebody takes an absurd position, right? Feminism is the idea that women are people too. That's so far to the left that when you move to, compromise with that, you go from being middle of the road all the way to a little bit, left of center, and then far left. That's what they do. So, no. She doesn't have an advantage. That's it. No, she's gone through the hormone therapy. I know she looks like, but she doesn't have an advantage. In fact, she's at a disadvantage. Is what it is. And really, you need to get. I mean, this is the type of stuff that these people are doing. And here you have CBS, an American broadcasting company, right, out here pushing this nonsense. And again, folks, we talk about this and we used to laugh at it and think it was funny. So let's get to a couple of other stories out there, and then I'll get to the January 6th thing. And then it looks like we're going to wrap up the show very early today. There's just not as much going on for the reasons I said. But anyway, so here's something I saw this morning in the New York Times and my Twitter feed. Panel finds Daniel Snyder interfered with sexual harassment investigation. Okay, in a memo released Wednesday, a congressional panel said it found evidence that the Washington Redskins owner conducted a, quote, shadow investigation, close quote, of accusers. Now, the reason this caught my eye was that a congressional panel found evidence and did an investigation into the Washington Redskins. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but folks, this should alarm you. Why is this a federal issue? I don't care what this guy did. He had a shadow investigation of accusers. I'm going to explain to you if you don't know the story. I know the story because I follow the NFL. But I'm going to get to the story. But I want you to imagine, think to yourself, what could a congressional committee be possibly looking into this? What could they possibly be looking to do to find evidence of here? All right, so it starts from the New York Times. Again, this was released this morning at 10 a.m. As the NFL was investigating his team for widespread workplace misconduct, Washington Redskins owner Daniel Snyder directed a, quote, shadow investigation to interfere with and undermine its findings, a congressional committee found. All right, so the NFL is investigating widespread workplace misconduct. All right, so we've already got workplace rules out there. Are they looking for a new workplace rule? I don't know. Let's see. At Snyder's behest, his legal team used private investigators to harass and intimidate witnesses and create a 100-page dossier targeting victims, witnesses, journalists who had shared credible public accusations of harassment against the team. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's laws against all of that if that's what they did, both criminal and civil. So there's no new law here we need to look at too. The House Committee on Oversight and Reform released a 29-page memo on Wednesday that detailed the findings of its 8-month probe. 8 months they've been working on this, into how the Redskins and the NFL handle claims of rampant sexual harassment of the team's female employees. Okay, so now they finally tell us what's going on. So we've already got the Civil Rights Act of 1965 that this would be, if you are sexually harassing female employees, this would create both a civil and a potential criminal case that you could bring. So we've already got laws on the books. I don't know why we need to spend 8 months doing this. The report came ahead of a hearing where the league's commissioner, Roger Goodell, was expected to appear and face questioning. Snyder declined 2 requests to appear, citing a long-standing business conflict. Representative Carolyn B. Maloney, Democrat of New York, the chairwoman of the committee, wrote that it uncovered evidence that Snyder sought to discredit those who made claims against his team and to create an exculpatory narrative that Snyder was not to blame for the misconduct which was alleged to have taken place between 2006 and 2019, almost the entire tenure of his ownership. Folks, you should care about this for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, we spent 8 months of taxpayer money and time looking into something about an organization that just tell the DOJ they can, if there's criminal, they can go after it. You think these people can't find lawyers? I mean, I'm not broadcasting from D.C., I'm broadcasting from Atlanta. But if these allegations are true, you'd have lawyers lined up as far as I can see to take these cases. Against the Washington Redskins? Are you kidding me? But again, our government does that. And the New York Times, right? The New York Times, the old gray lady herself, what does she do? Does she run a story saying, what are they doing? Why are they wasting time with this? Is Congresswoman Maloney just doing this to, waste our time and our money? No. They report it like this is something normal. I mean, this story goes on. I only read you the first few paragraphs. You scroll down, the whole point here, it's like some sort of scandal. I mean, this is where we are today. You've got the journalists who are supposed to be checking the Congress people. They're celebrating it. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm reading the New York Times, right? Or some tabloid that you get when you check out at the grocery store, if those even exist anymore. And this happens every day, 24/7, 365. And you wonder why you don't have competent people who can get the gas prices right or figure out how to deal with Vladimir Putin. Anyways, here's another story in the Hill, okay? House passes bill revising U.S. code to clarify that women, LGBTQ individuals, can be president. Ferraro ran on the ticket as VP. She was a woman, 1984. Okay, all right. We all know Kamala is the vice president. We all know Hillary Clinton in 2016 ran to be the president of the United States and actually won the popular election vote, right? And we also know that Sarah Palin was on the ticket in 2008. I just gave you 4 instances. Who questions women being able to be president? Who questions LGBTQ? It's sexual orientation. I've never seen any requirement for sexual orientation. The only thing I know, in order to be president under the Constitution, and for some reason my pocket Constitution is not on my desk, so I can't flip through it and show you the actual, but I know it all by heart. You have to be 35 years old, and you have to be a natural-born citizen. So, hate to tell you, but, Elon Musk is not eligible. He may be an American citizen, but he's not natural-born, so he's not eligible. But that's it. 35 and natural-born, and you're good. Right? So what is this argument about? Let's see what the article does. Let's read a little bit. The House passed a bill on Tuesday that seeks to revise federal law and clarify that women and LGBTQ Americans can be president of the United States, as if anybody doesn't know that. The legislation, dubbed the 21st Century President Act, passed by a voice vote. It also passed the House by a voice vote in the last Congress. Folks, this is why it's so important in November that the Republicans retake the House, even if they don't retake the Senate, just so we're not wasting our time on garbage like this. This bill specifically takes issue with a portion of the U.S. Code that pertains to threats against presidents, former presidents, and certain other individuals. As currently written, the statute defines immediate family as the wife of the former president during his lifetime, the widow of the former president until her death or remarriage, and minor children of the former president until they reach the age of 16 years. Now, folks, that's a little surprising to me that it's not broader than that, but whatever. But under the legislation that passed on Tuesday, that language would be changed to the spouse of the former president during the former president, blah, 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 blah. So they're basically changing wife to spouse. All right, folks, does this need to be done? I suppose. But I'm just curious. You've got Kamala, who, as far as I know, her husband's not LGBTQ or anything other than that, right? And you've got Jill Biden, right? So there's no urgency for this. Maybe if Biden were to croak today and then Kamala were, maybe we need to clarify it so that, what's his name, gets whatever he's supposed to get, right? Because he's obviously not the wife. Maybe then, but it's not urgent now. But this goes to show you what Pelosi's Congress is up to every day. This is all they do, stuff like this. They all do this. And the reason they do it, and we're reading that from the Hill, is because, again, the mainstream media, the legacy media, they report on this like it's rational. I mean, what in the world? I mean, I could sit here and start naming problems that we have, and I would not come to the Washington Redskins or the language about security for former presidents' spouse and children until, like, I don't know, next year when I started naming things. I don't know how long it would take you, but I'm guessing it wouldn't be much. So last story of the day here, and we were really going to beat the clock. Wow. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I hadn't been feeling well, so maybe I'm not my usual self. Anyway, Team Trump knew their fake elector scheme had no validity. They went ahead with it anyway. Okay, now this is from MSNBC. Okay, I understand it's MSNBC. It's the left of the left of the left, but this makes perfectly the point that I've been trying to make today. All right, so let's click on the article. It will magically pop up on our internet. There we go. Docs, Team Trump knew fake election scheme had no legal validity. Imagine being one of the fake electors and learning that the people who pushed the scheme didn't have confidence that the anti-election gambit was legal. Now, this is following up on the January 6th committee yesterday. He actually wrote this in the morning because he had been tipped off, as per usual, by this not unconstitutional show trial fake committee that's operating in secrecy. Which, again, I keep saying this, in addition to those, you got the other problem that they are leaking information, which is a felony. They are leaking information from people that they are not supposed to do. Anyway, this guy, Steve Bannon, he works for Rachel Maddow. So after members of Donald Trump's team launched a scheme to overturn the Republican election defeat, they seem to realize that they need fake electors to make the plot work. Indeed, fake electors would be a key ingredient to challenging the legitimate election results. And so, as the regular readers probably know, Republicans in several states created forged election materials pretending to be duly and qualified electors. They sent the documents to, among other things, the U.S. Senate and the U.S. Archives as if fake materials were legitimate. They were not. Now, all right, so he's telling this story about the fake electors and all this stuff. And again, obviously, if you did this and you really think it were fake and forged, you wouldn't send the ballots and you wouldn't send all this stuff. So this is a trick they do, and I wanted to go over this today because this was just a perfect example. I read the articles because, as you know, I live streamed the January 6 hearings. I've done the first four. I've done a lot of articles on January 6. And I'm one of the experts on this because I've done so much writing and reading about it. And I know this stuff backwards and forwards, so I was just kind of curious about this. Well, I clicked on the link. He's got it. It's in blue here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. Created forged election materials. Well, I wonder let's see if it's going to show us the forged election materials. No, in fact, it's not. It takes us back to MSNBC and the same author, something he wrote in January of 2022. All right, let's go back to the original article that we're reading. Let's read a little further. Okay, so he doesn't show us the materials. He cites back to himself. As scrutiny over the controversy intensified, we also learned that members of the former president's team were directly involved. That's also highlighted. We're going to check that out in a second, in trying to execute this scheme. What's been less clear, however, was the degree to which they also knew that their gambit had no legal legitimacy. All right, let's click on directly involved. Let's see what that goes to. Oh, my God. It goes back to the same author that wrote the story we're reading, this time about a month ago. That's funny. So far, he hasn't shown us anything, and he's just referred back to his own article. Let's keep reading. All right. The Washington Post reported on internal campaign emails and memos, including some from Trump attorney John Eastman, which shed light on how the concocted strategy was executed. Okay, so finally we've referred to something outside of this guy himself. Let's click on that. All right. Trump campaign documents show advisors knew fake elector plan was baseless. A review of emails and the memos show that lawyers advising former President Trump knew the plan was baseless but pursued it anyway. This is from Rosalind Helderman, June 20th, 2022. Let's scroll down and read a little bit of this. Surely she's going to show us the documents that she's talking about that have been leaked to her because she works for the Washington Post, where democracy supposedly dies in darkness, where you have a committee literally operating in darkness. I mean, imagine the hypocrisy. But anyway, the convening of the Electoral College on December 14th, 2020, was supposed to mark the end of the wild, extended presidential election. For the 14th, they get together and they sort of informally tell each other what the tally is. That's what that date is. It's the so-called safe harbor. I could go into it, but it doesn't matter. Just take my word for it. So she's already busted herself. She's already talking about December 14th of 2020. The election was November 3rd, 2020. So you're talking about a month and 11 days. But when the day arrived, a strange thing happened. In 7 states won by Joe Biden, when the Democrat electors assembled to formally elect him president, Trump supporters showed up too, ready to declare their man had actually won. The electors are already here. They've been checked in, a state police officer told the group in Michigan, according to a video of the encounter, as he barred Republicans from the Capitol in a state won by Biden by 154,000 votes. In Nevada, a state Biden won by 33,600 votes, a photo distributed by the state Republican Party showed Trump supporters squeezing around an undersized picnic table dressed up with a bit of bunting, preparing to sign formal certificates declaring that they were duly elected and qualified electors in their state. Anyway, it goes on. I'm going to scroll down. For those of you on YouTube, you can see it. It scrolls down. It never cites to anything. It never shows any pictures of anything. It just describes so-and-so told somebody and so-and-so told somebody else. Never gives you any of the actual evidence, okay? So let's go back to the original article we were reading, and let's go down and see what he does. So he continues talking about this, all right? So he's quoted the Washington Post, right? I just read you that. Imagine being one of the fake electors and learning how the people who pushed the scheme, Republicans in key positions whom you trusted, didn't even have the confidence that the ridiculous anti-election gambit was legal. It's a reminder that too many regular folks who put their faith in Team Trump seem to get burned in the end. Also notable is the speed with which the plot took shape. From the Post reporting, all right, so they read from the Post reporting, which again does not show you any of the actual evidence that the committee has leaked to the Post. All right, all of this will be a focal point of today's hearing, blah, 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 blah. Then he says Adam Schiff told the Los Angeles Times. Well, you can't read that if you're watching us on YouTube because it's behind a paywall, but who cares? That's what Schiff told. Schiff has told people a lot of things, right? And none of it's so far been believable. Okay, so he's so far referred to the Washington Post, which doesn't give us the evidence, and he's pointing to what Adam Schiff told us. Okay. He goes, the California Democrat went on to tell Rachel on the show, so what he told Rachel Maddow. Meanwhile, let's not forget, we click back. Shocking. He refers to himself again. Then let's go back. All right. He talks about the state's attorneys generals. Again, he refers back to himself. Folks, anyway, I'm not going to continue to belabor this, but the point is that what's happening here with January 6th is a hoax within a hoax within a hoax. Okay, so you've got a committee that's, again, I say this all the time, all it was really designed to do is to see if we can get Americans to let us get away with a show trial. Will they allow us to go forward with an American committee going after an American in secrecy where we can then have a trial where there's no defense at all, right? Will they let us do it? Once they get allowed to do that, then basically you don't have a republic anymore. And if you don't understand that, then there's not much I can do to explain it to you. But then this has also been a benefit if they then feed things to the media. And I shouldn't be picking on MSNBC because they pretty much all do it. I just proved Washington Post does it and others do it. So then they get leaked documents. And then there was a time when they would have to pick and choose which documents to show you and take little certain excerpts out of them. They don't have to do that anymore. The Washington Post, the New York Times, right? All these people, they just then go, we've seen emails and the emails say this. You need to take our word for it. And then Steve Bannon writes an article where he either gets to refer to himself or he gets to refer to the Washington Post, which is interpreting documents that they won't show you, folks. And that is a perfect encapsulation of what the January 6th committee is doing. If you've been following these hearings, which I have, and if you haven't, you can go to my Great American Mail YouTube channel and you get all 4 of them from gavel to gavel. We did all of them live streamed. But you see that's what they're doing. So now you've had the media doing this and you've got Congress doing this. Where's the evidence? Where's the facts? Where's any reality of any kind? And you start to see and you look around the world in which we live, right, where all they have is gimmicks. They have gas gimmicks. They have athletic gimmicks with transgenderism. They have committees to go look into things that are none of their business and have already been solved. I mean, this is crazy. And you wonder how things get that bad. You know what? And let's just see how bad they are. Let's go pull up the congressional Let's go to the polls, pull up the congressional ballot see where if I can find it real quick. Here it is right here, generic congressional vote. All right, I'm going to read for you, and then you're basically all caught up on the news of the day now, but I'm going to go one more story here, doing this off the cuff since we're so early. Right now, I'm going to read you the results of the congressional ballot. And again, the congressional election is tilted a little bit towards the Republicans. So if the polls are showing plus Democrat 2 to 3, maybe even 4, expect it to be a Republican Congress, right? So none of these numbers are great for Democrats. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. But they're not as far away as they should be when the Democrats are acting this crazy. When they're wasting time looking at the Washington Redskins and worrying about statutes that have no applicability at all, right? Or passing idiotic things like the anti-gouging bill, when if there's gouging, the Department of Justice, which is controlled by the same party, could prosecute it. You know you got problems. Anyway, so YouGov, Republicans plus 4. Politico, a tie. Okay, imagine that. Rasmussen, Republicans plus 5. USA Today, a tie. All right, Fox News, Republicans plus 3. And Quinnipiac, Republicans plus 5. And I want you to know that the average here is Republicans plus 2.8. And you have to understand that leaves a lot of undecideds. Now, undecideds tend to, on Election Day, if they haven't made up their mind by that point, go to the opposition partner. So that would inure to the Republicans' benefit. But I want you to understand, as bad as things are right now, and as bad as Democrats are acting, right, because of the environment where the media is controlled by the opposition party, by the Democrats, where they control not only all the levers of government, but the method by which we get our media and we get our information, right? This is, far from a sure thing. So anyway, you are all caught up on the news of the day, and if you like the program, I hope you tune back in tomorrow.